doing a little interview with the author of Land of Tears. And I want to start with Sanjar's beginning, and I want him to tell his story rather than us trying to tell you too much about him. So, Sanjar, if you could begin now, you authored this book, but I want you to tell me about your background. Like, where were you born, and what was that like growing up, and what brought you to the point where you wrote the book, and then we're going to get into what's happened to you in the last year or so.
Of course, I'd be glad to. Well, obviously, I was born in Iran, in Tehran, the capital city, and lived there for most of my childhood until I was 12. Left Iran not because of the revolution, left it in 1977, about 2 years before the revolution, year and a half before that, and came to the States to go to school. And the plan was that once I finished my schooling, I'd go back to Iran and take over my father's business. That's what kids did back then. They would go abroad, study, get their degree, come back and take over their dad's business. But unfortunately, as fate would have it, the revolution panned out. Nobody thought it would happen the way it did. And my father, who was in Iran at the time, he ended up having to uh, flee the country because at that time, in the beginning of the revolution, there was a list that came out by the Khomeini and Khomeiniist, which was called like the blacklist. And the names on that list were supposed to be captured and executed.
Mm.
So my father left everything behind, just fled the country with the clothes on his back. And, I've been here since 1977, never went back. As much as I would like to maybe go back and visit someday, I'm just not with the current regime in power. That would not be possible for me.
So, when you
Um,
came to America at 12 years old, who did you stay with? Who came with you if your father stayed in Iraq?
yeah, Iran. Yeah, I came with my mother and my brothers. The four of us came. My mother was going to situate me and my brothers. My brothers are a few years older than me. So we're supposed to get situated here. My mom would go back after we had our uh, place and everything, and we had relatives here that would have actually look after us. My mother would go back to Iran, basically gather up her stuff and come back and stay with us. We would stay here until we finished our studies and then go back to Iran. But it just didn't happen that way.
Now, when you came here, there must have been quite the language barrier, unless you had started to learn English in Iran.
Well, actually, I went to a private school in Iran. So as soon as you started kindergarten, they would teach you Farsi and English simultaneously. And by the time you hit fifth grade, they would teach you Farsi, English, and Arabic. So I already had familiarity with the English language. I spoke it, albeit they would teach us English was being taught um, the King's version of the English. So we spoke with an English accent,
Okay.
not with an American accent. So initially, when I came out here, I lived in Texas for a year. So I would be talking in the English accent, and I had no friggin' idea what the twangers were talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, that was challenging, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
I
So,
was
when did
born in Texas, Sanjar, so I know what they talk like, and it's nothing like the King's English.
Oh,
right?
that's for sure. But I tell you something. As much as people say that Southern people are not, they're prejudiced and everything, I received nothing but love and respect from them. And that was in a place in Texas, in a small town in Texas. So it was basically, if I'm allowed to say, it was a redneck city, and I loved it. It was a redneck town, and I loved it. It was great.
The funny thing is, most rednecks don't mind being called rednecks at all. They wear it as a badge of honor, so that's fine.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you, some of the names that they called me, I was never insulted by it. If I were to say it right now, and maybe some of your audience would be insulted by it, but I was laughing at the names they were calling me. I thought it was funny. But today, it's the environment has become so sensitive, hypersensitive,
Yes,
that you cannot have a lighthearted conversation even with a buddy of yours.
that's true.
Yeah,
I can't tell you in this podcast what some of my friends called me either. Some of my friends in the military, they were very colorful names, let's say that.
oh yeah, I mean, listen, I think that's the flavor of life.
Yes, it
And if you have enough, if you feel comfortable with who you are, call me anything you want. Doesn't bother me.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we grew up with the sticks or stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me motto. And I grew
yeah,
up in New York City in a mixed neighborhood. We used to call each other all kinds of nasty names, but we loved each other. We were friends. It was just a common way of speaking.
sure.
So
Yeah.
anyway, Sanjar, what brought you to the point where you finally became an interpreter for the U.S. Marines?
Well, I tell you a quick funny story before I answer that question. Uh, During the Second World War, when the Americans came into Iran, because prior to the Americans coming into Iran, the Shah's father had aligned itself, the country, with the Germans. So the Germans built a lot of the infrastructure. But at one point, the Shah's father, being a tactician that he was, he kicked the Germans out and he let the Americans to come in. So at that time, during the Second World War, there was a lot of shortage of food in Iran. And my father spoke English. He was a young man in his teens, mid-teens. So one day he walked up to the American base and he asked for a job, and he became an interpreter for the American general for that base. So
Oh,
fast forward all these years, in 2009, when we had the uh, meltdown, the real estate meltdown, I suffered also. My business suffered terribly, and I was left with a choice of okay, either I sit on my ass and go into depression, or I do something. So I randomly responded to a small ad in a Farsi newspaper asking for Farsi and Dari speakers, Farsi, Dari, and Pashto speakers. It was just a tiny, maybe an inch by 1 inch ad. And I thought for sure it's a CIA ploy to recruit people. And when I answered it, I was turned over to a class to learn Pashto. And from there, I went to Afghanistan. It was either that or, again, kind of drown in my sorrows in LA and then go down the drains. But I needed to make a decision, and I did. And it's the best decision I ever made in my life.
and how old were you then?
When I responded to the ad, I was 44 years old. I wasn't a spring chicken, so yeah, I was 44.
I guess that begs the question, and I don't know if you want to talk about it. What did you do between the time you graduated high school and turned 44?
Oh God, ask me what I didn't do. Well, toward the end, when I in about from 2000 from 2004 to about 2009, or 2000, yeah, about actually 2000. Uh, I began a consulting business. I went to business school. I have my MBA degree from Pepperdine, master's degree, and so I was doing I had my own consulting business, and I also started. My two brothers, they're both, one is a periodontist, one is a prosthodontist. So we decided to buy up dental offices, whereas I would run the daily basis, the daily day-to-day business aspect, and they would run the dental side of the business. Everything was nice and dandy. And again, in 2009, when the economy took a hit, we took a hit, and there were other dynamics playing into the story. So we had to break up the partnership and liquidate the offices, the dental offices. And at that time, I had more expenses than I had money coming in.
Mm.
Living in Los Angeles, we live beyond our means, and so after much soul searching and coming across this tiny ad, I decided, what, this is what's supposed to be, and I went ahead and I pulled the trigger on it. But there is one small caveat to that also. When I was 18, I took the naval exam to go to the Navy. 'cause I always wanted to be join uh, the Marines and join the Navy, and I always wanted to go into the naval intelligence sector. I always was very attracted to it. Having passed the exam, I chickened out and I never showed up to join
Wow.
the. And I regret that is I only have one regret in life, and that is my only regret.
Wow.
When this
Well,
opportunity came up, I'm sorry, Mac, I'm interrupting you. When this opportunity came up to join the military, it was exciting, and I thought, maybe this is God's way of giving me a second chance.
that's quite a tale. That's quite a educational background and life experience. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and I've always been impressed with people who speak multiple languages because that's a talent that I do not have. And I wish I had spent time as a young man learning multiple languages. Sanjar, are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir. U.S. citizen.
Great, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that my mother was really focused on was to get our green card and eventually get our citizenship. And unfortunately, the first time around when we filed for our paperwork, the attorney disappeared with a substantial sum of money that my mom had
Uh,
paid. Yeah, and back then things were kind of tight, no money coming from anywhere.
yes,
So everybody had to work, and it was a tough pill to swallow, but it is what it is.
that's a rude introduction to America, the seedy side. I'm sorry that you had that experience. Most Americans are not like that.
No, and I know that, and I tell you, Mac, it's not only limited to Americans. I mean, it's everywhere in the world. You got good people and you got crap people.
Yes,
It's
yes.
I don't just one action like that doesn't determine what the rest of the country is like. So I don't blame Americans. I think this is a great country.
I
Yeah,
remember. I
same thing
remember.
happened to my friend Stan. I think you met Stan, right, Mac?
Yes.
Yeah, same thing happened to him when he was becoming a citizen here in the United States. He got taken over. So there's a caution for anyone seeking access to become a United States citizen. You got to be careful which attorneys you pick. Make sure they have a good reputation. So that's
Well,
an important fact.
yeah, now we have with the advent of the internet and all that, you can always do a background check on people. Back then, it was, and this was brand new because there were not too many Iranians here.
Yes.
So we could seek advice from other people that had gone ahead of us. And again, this was the situation back then, much different than it is today.
Although in 1979, with the fall of the Shah, there were a lot of Iranians that came here to the United States. There was a pretty good number of folks that came here, and we
Absolutely.
welcomed them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read actually someplace, um, I read, and not this is not to boast or anything like that, but I heard that the Iranian population is the most successful immigrants that ever came to the United States. I mean, I live in Los Angeles and I see this success, and God bless them for it. It's amazing. It's very impressive.
I wouldn't doubt that the nation of Iran in 1979 was very modern and very westernized. And I don't know the answer to this, but maybe you can tell us. There is a significant difference in the nation of Iran today than there was, almost 45 years ago, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's night and day. I mean, although in the past few years, maybe 4 or 5 years, things have shifted a little bit. But prior to that, this was, I guess, again, not to want to get involved into sensitive topics, but with the Ayatollah coming in, and this was the final domination of Islam on Iran.
Yeah,
Because, with the Muslims attacking Persia 1400 years ago, they could never dominate the country and
right.
destroy its culture the way they did to the North African countries.
Yes.
Iran was the only country that kept the language alive. They did not adopt,
Yep.
the Islamic traditions for the most part. But I think this was the final blow, that they were finally able to conquer Iran.
History is history, my friend, and your people showed great courage during those trying times.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider going back to Iran if the government became more liberal, let us say, or more accepting of new different ideas?
Not with this government. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter what they say, unless it changes. And again, one thing to keep in mind, if the government changed in Iran, were to change in Iran, and I go back, I have no place there anymore.
oh,
I,
yeah,
this is my country, is America.
yeah. I understand that.
It'd be nice to go and see to some of the places that I remember from my childhood. But as far as trying to live there, I don't think I would be able to. That's not the country I left when I was a kid. This is my country now.
I should say that makes me feel very good. I take great pride in my country, and to hear you say that this is your country and you're an American makes me feel very, very good, Sanjar.
And thank you. Absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunities that this country afforded me and my family, and it is my country. It's the place where I'm gonna at some point in the hopefully distant future. This is going to be my ultimate resting place. you
I
So
know it's going to be mine. I'm not going anywhere.
know.
yeah. So anyway, tell me about the you first enter into the um, translator arena, and what was your first experience like?
Well, initially, when I made that phone call to the ad, they asked if I could Pashto. I had no idea what Pashto was up until that point, and I said, "Well, I don't know what Pashto is." So they sent me some documents, emailed me some documents to look at, and I looked at it and I could read it. The alphabet was the same. There are actually a couple of alphabet that were different, but for the most part, I could read it, not knowing what the hell I was reading. So when I started attending class, it was easy to pick up the language again because I didn't need to learn the alphabet from the beginning. I went to Pashto class 3 times a week, 8 hours a day for 5 months, and I had to go through multiple tests to pass the language, the government language exam, and finally get shipped out.
So when you got shipped out, what was that first experience like? You were embedded with Marines immediately, or was there a transition period?
No, it's actually, once I completed the language testing process, then I had to go through the background check, the CI interviews, and all the other stuff to try to obtain at least some the lowest form of security clearance. And once I did that, once I went through that process, went to Fort Benning. From there, we shipped out to Qatar, spent a few days there. From there to Bagram, and in Bagram, after about a week or so, a week or 10 days, they gathered all the Terps around and they handed out the assignments. And I had no idea who I would end up with, if it was going to be a desk job, if it was going to be a outside the wire job, because also depending on which area you would get sent to, you would either need to use just completely Dari language, or you would need to have a combination of Dari and Pashto. And when I got my assignment, it was to Camp Leatherneck in Helmand Province
Ooh.
with Marines, the tip of the spear, and predominantly Pashto speakers, but they do speak Dari as well. So that's where I was sent after. I want to say after about a week or so in Bagram, when I got my assignment, then I was shipped out to Camp Leatherneck.
So one of my experiences, traveling the world with special operations was trying to understand different languages. Of course, I don't have the background you do, but I do know from my travels, especially in South and Central America, that even they speak different dialects. So is it the same in Afghanistan where you may speak the general language, but did you have difficulty understanding people from different areas?
Oh, the Pashto, I think, if I'm not making a mistake, there's uh, 50 plus different dialects of Pashto. Because
Wow.
it's, yeah, and once the local populations, especially the hostile ones, once they knew that your Pashto is not your main language, they would really try to fuck with your head.
Huh. I
This was
bet.
not because, yeah, this wasn't because I was Iranian. They did the same thing to the Afghans as well, because
Yep.
not every Afghan spoke Pashto. A lot of them had learned it. So we're all pretty much in the same boat. I'll give you one example it was very interesting example. In Pashto, Kur means home, right? That's the way I was taught this. Kur means home. And Kir is slang for cock, like a man's genitals, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as they found out that I was an Iranian, they would not say, I'm inviting you to my home, to my kur. They say, I'm inviting you to my kir,
Ooh.
changing the dynamic completely. And I knew this. I already knew some of these nuances about the language. And that's how it was. And if you showed any kind of like you were disrespected or it was an insult to you, then that would just change the dynamic for the worse.
Yep.
Yeah, so you really had to be sensitive towards stuff like that. It was nothing that you could take personal.
Right. It's one of the four agreements. Don't take things personally.
Yep. Exactly.
So you talk in your book. I haven't read it, but I've heard about the excerpts. I'm waiting for it to come out on audio, and we'll have to talk about getting it there someday. Because my eyes are so bad from sitting in front of computers, I have a difficult time reading books. I used to love to read books, but your role as an interpreter, you said there was constant tensions and loyalty issues. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there were not too many Iranians that went to Afghanistan as interpreters. There was only there was only a handful that I knew of, and initially, when we were stateside, there was no tension between the Afghans and the Iranians. Although, as I mentioned in my other interview, there is a lot of backstabbing between the two cultures. You know, we
Sure.
call each other's brothers in each other's face, but as soon as we turn around, the knives come out. So, with that said, one of the things that was constantly I was being reminded of was, hey, this is not your country. Why are you earning this money coming to our country? And I would tell them that money is coming out of Uncle Sam's pocket, not out of yours. I volunteered to come here, so it's none of your business. And that right there caused some tension. The other thing was that, as you know, the Afghans are predominantly Sunni Muslims, with the exception of the Hazaras, which are the Shiites, and the Hazaras are they resemble the Mongols, the Mongolians, not Mongols, Mongolians. So with they're the only Shiite tribe in the Afghanistan, but they would always ask me, "Are you Shiite or Sunni?" And I would say, "I'm Sunni." Say, "How can that be?" And I would tell them I'm Kurdish, and I am from my mother's side. I'm Kurdish, so I would say I'm from Kurdish side, and they would know that I'm Sunni. So again, there were some tensions, be culturally, uh, religious wise, and just being an Iranian in Afghanistan. So it was a separate issue with the Afghans, with the other Turks that I shared the tent with, and obviously when I was assigned to the team the first time around, one of the things that they said the lieutenant that was my handler said my POC said you don't look like the rest of these people. You know, you're very light complected. You don't come across as an Afghan. I said, I'm not. And they asked me where I was from. I told them. So that was a little bit of a sticking point because, again, I can't blame them. You know, you have an Iranian in Afghanistan in a war torn country, and you're volunteering to do some stuff with the military. So they had that hesitation uh, initially. And I was able to kind of prove myself and show my loyalties and then overcome that.
You
Yes.
know, St. John, in that environment, that hesitation you're talking about is self-preservation.
Yeah.
When an American soldier, sailor, airman, or marine is in another country, very often we get the same kind of distrust that you experienced. And it takes us a while to get to know who we can trust. I'm glad you were able to prove yourself and earn that trust, because there's nothing better than having that trust relationship between men who are trying to do a job, an important job and a dangerous job.
Surely, and I was looking at some of those uh, young soldiers. They were just mere kids,
Yes,
and I could not. It wasn't about me. I couldn't take it personal or make it personal. I had volunteered to do something, and if I had to overcome that aspect, I would do the best I could to do it. I
yeah,
was always trying to put myself in their position. How
sure.
would I feel? And I came back to the same answer. Yes, I would feel, kind of hesitant to engage somebody like me.
My next question is relatively simple. So, what motivated you after all of this? And I'm sure there's more detail to talk about, but what motivated you to write your book? And what would you want your audience, the reader, to basically get from it?
The motivation was while I was in the theater, I would take down notes, just random notes for my own edification, so I could go back and read them someday, and I would remember. And at some point, my computer was confiscated because they thought I'm taking detailed information. After they looked at it, it was returned to me, and everything was okay. It was just something for memory's sake that I was writing down. And then when I came here, they say for every 1 year that you spend in a war zone, it takes you 4 years to recover. And not being a part of the military, when I came back, there were no avenues for me to pursue as far as, again, as much as I hate to say it, I had suffered PTSD as well. I was blown up a few times, of course, not in person, but the vehicle that I was in. And I had issues of sleeping and, being able to relate to other people. And going to therapy was just not an option for me. I'm just not a big fan of it. And I decided to start writing, what my emotions were and recalling the story. And I wrote about 80 or 90 pages and I got stuck. So I thought, you know what, while I wrote this 80, 90 pages, I got some relief, some sense of relief. It really calmed me down. So I sought a writing coach and I met with her a couple of times a week to learn how to write. And I started writing and she would look at my material, make the corrections. And this was like a therapy for me. I had no intention about going forward with, publishing anything. So by the time I got to the end of the road with the writing coach, I had about 400 pages. Be it redundancies, grammatical mistakes, some mumbo jumbo stuff. Because sometimes I had no idea what I was writing. I just wanted to get that stuff out of my system.
Right.
And my brother one day told me that one of his patients is a literary agent. He said, "Why don't you give her your manuscript?" I met with her, gave her the 400-page manuscript. Uh, didn't take her a week to call me back. Said, "Sanj, you got something great here, but you need to clean it up. I would represent you." And that got me excited, I have to admit.
Wow.
So we went ahead and I worked with, I believe, four different editors. And we were able to get it to 280 pages from the 400 initial pages. And we started shopping it around. I think everybody turned us down. And the agent was getting discouraged, and so was I. And, again, once you start pursuing it, even though initially wasn't what I wanted to do with it, it becomes a challenge for you. And finally, I told her I had a conversation with her. I said, let's give it one more shot. If things don't work out, I don't expect you to.
Your prayer for me, my family.
I'm sorry.
No, I didn't say anything. There was somebody in the background noise.
Oh, yeah. So, we finally sent the manuscript to Millspeak, and Tracy was gracious enough to accept it, even though they only published military veterans and military people, current military people, material from them. But she was gracious enough to extend me the invitation to become a part of that family, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I would consider you part of the family for sure.
Thank you, sir. That's an honor. I appreciate that.
I mean,
That's a fantastic story. And it not only does it ring true, but it must have been such a great experience for you. You know, our military does not do a good job with treating our soldiers when we send them back home from a war zone. You said PTSD, and there are varying degrees of that, and different people need different things. But we've sent our soldiers back, and last week they were on the battlefield, and this week they're living in their home back on the block with their family, and there's no real time to decompress. There's no real time for them to, as you said, get get to work on some of those things that you're feeling and some of the things that you're experiencing. So writing about it sounds to me like an absolutely fantastic way to get that release that you need. I'll bet you that was very therapeutic.
Oh, I tell you something. I learned so much more about myself that I was trying to ignore and brush under the carpet because I just did not want to face some of my own demons. And I'm not saying I had demons that we're all dealing with certain issues ourselves. Everybody to their own degree. But this was really it changed. It transformed me to a different person. Uh, I.
Sanjar, I was in the Army, not the Marines, so I can say this. Just dealing with the Marines on a daily basis is what kind of PTSD. And I have good friends who are Marines. I say that in the finest sense of branch nagging each other. So
Well, I'll tell you two things. You say this initially when I was in Bagram and they handed me my assignment. There was a retired Marine that went to Afghanistan, hired by the same company that had hired me, and he was there as a private security. So the day that they handed the assignments, there was pandemonium. People were crying, people were quitting, everybody was panicking. So I'm looking at this sheet of paper like an idiot, not knowing what LNK means and not knowing what uh, one meth means. IMEF, I'm reading IMEF. What the hell is IMEF? What the hell is LNK? So this guy, signals me over. I go to him and he says, "What's your assignment?" I said, "I have no idea." I give him the sheet and he looks at it and his eyes just light up and he says, "Oh, brother, you've been assigned to the Marine Corps, the First Marine Expeditionary Forces." I'm saying, "What the hell is this? Everybody's telling me the Marines are animals. You don't want to work with them. They're going to get you killed." So I'm crapping my pants. And being an ex-Marine that he was, he says, "Listen, why don't you go down there and decide for yourself if the Marines are an
yep,
animal or not?" And I thought, you know what? This is sound advice. I can always quit and go home. And I went there. Believe me, I really had a lot of hesitation. And when I got assigned to the specific group that I was assigned to, the first couple of days, I had butterflies in my stomach, and it's like two voices in my head. One was saying, "Quit, go home." The other one was saying, "Fuck off, tough it out, see where it goes."
yeah,
And I'm glad I listened to the one that was saying, "Fuck off, tough it out." And one of the first things that the Marines told me when I was assigned to them, they said, "You know what? A Marine can be a best friend or your worst nightmare. You
absolutely.
choose." There's some
I was
YouTube.
going to say the same thing. There's
Yeah,
no better friend than a Marine, and there's no worse enemy than a Marine.
yeah,
They're very strict about the way they deal with those things. Yep.
yeah. And boy,
Obviously, you made the grade, Sanjar. You made it over the. You got the Marines to trust you. That's quite a
yeah,
compliment for you and your service.
thank you, sir. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I mentioned this in the book. Initially, when I got deployed from here, I was given Army gear. But when I was assigned to the Marines, I said I have my own gear. They said, no, 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 we're going to give you our gear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they gave me a set of stuff. Some of it, most of it was used with the exception of the uniform. And the first time that I was going on a mission, I put on that Marine uniform, and I tell you, it was like my soul connected to that uniform.
Yes.
It was as if I was, you know, a Marine in a previous lifetime. I mean, I felt like I just slipped into my own skin. I can't describe the feeling. It was just unbelievable putting that uniform on.
I served 24 years in the Army, but I freely admit there is no finer fighting force on the face of this globe than the United States Marine Corps. I have great admiration for those people. I know many of them, and they're great guys.
Absolutely. I'm just grateful for the experience and the opportunity.
Yeah, I had a great experience in special ops. The opportunity to know the special operations people from every branch of the military. I'm talking SEALs, Delta Force, Rangers, everybody. And once you're sort of in that club, we still razz each other a little bit, but it is like one giant, unique club. And, it's a brotherhood. And you learn to respect each other really down at the core. Today, Mac will tease me a lot about being Air Force. And he's right. I had some cush duty, like I'd go away and I'd be in a high rise hotel or somewhere, but other times I was down in the dirt in the tents and, it was ugly. But yeah, it was a great experience. And when I came home, yeah, I had a little bit of PTSD, but you know, Afghanistan was my last conflict, and I think I learned to meditate because I don't know about you. I'd be walking into a grocery store, all of a sudden my heart would start beating out of nowhere, no apparent reason,
Mm.
and you start to get like anxious. I don't know if you were like that.
Yeah. And that was, yeah. And, the other part was that I had zero patience for some of my friends. I mean, I wanted to go out to dinner with them, and I sit down at the table, and after the first 10 minutes, I wanted to tell them, shut the fuck up.
Hmm.
Or I wanted to get up and leave. I had zero in common with them anymore.
Yeah.
What the stuff that they talked about,
Yep. And
you
they
know,
never. Yep.
I just could not, I just could not relate to. Like, for example, one time I was out and we're out at a steakhouse, and they brought the steak, and the person I was with said, "Oh, you need to take this back because the steak is not butterflied correctly." And I wanted to smash that plate on top of her head. What? So just eat the damn thing. What the hell do you know about a butterflied steak? You just heard something and you're regurgitating it. Just eat the damn thing. It looks perfectly good. Well, obviously, I didn't say it. I was saying, thinking
Right.
to,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know, yeah, I did, I think for the better, I did lose a lot of friendships, and I use the term friendship very loosely.
yeah.
Because you just kind of outgrow them, and you realize that, their priorities are in the wrong place. Not to,
Sandro, what does your book actually cover? Is it a chronological story from your arrival until your departure from Afghanistan?
yes, well, prior it covers from the time I went to the Pashto class and going into Afghanistan and until I came back. Obviously, names and dates have been changed. Certain things have been modified and changed, but it pretty much I hit on every major event that came to me at that time that I could remember, and I put it down. But dates and dates are pretty much right on, but some have been changed. names obviously changed, but yes, it chronicles my time prior to Afghanistan and after coming back.
What year did you return?
20. I came back in December of 2011.
2011. And
Yes.
so, gosh, what did you start doing when you returned?
It's very interesting. Nobody had ever asked me this question, so thank you for asking me. I was actually on my way. I came back in December and I was scheduled to leave in February. I think February 9th or something, if I remember correctly. Uh, I had all my papers and everything, my orders to go, and at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was taking my mother out to lunch. We thought, okay, before I leave, we go have lunch together. And I was driving down the freeway. Here, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 405 freeway. It's always like a parking lot.
Yeah.
And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yeah.
it is jam packed. And
I used to live in Fontana, so
so you're familiar, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so at 2 o'clock, as I was driving, the driver of an 18 wheeler fell asleep behind the wheel,
Oh my God.
basically uh, landed on top of my car,
Oh my goodness.
closing down the freeway completely. So I had to, I thought I saw the roof of my car coming down, and I thought, God, don't let my mother see me die in front of her. That's the only thing that I was thinking about. And I'm telling you, it's by the grace of God that uh, you know, traffic stopped, the truck jackknifed on the freeway, shutting both sides of the freeway down. So I had to crawl over my mother and exit the car from the passenger window. All the windows were smashed. And when the highway patrol came, they said, "Where's the body in that car?" I said, "What body?" They said, "The driver of that car." I said, "You're looking at him." They said, "This is impossible." I didn't even break his skin, not one drop of blood.
Wow.
So I continued with I went back east to fly out to get processed out. But unfortunately, when the truck hit me, I did not realize the damage that it had done to my left shoulder. And there was no way I could pick up 150 pounds of gear. I had a frozen left shoulder. So I got sent back home, and things just took a different direction from me there. But I was on my way to going back to Afghanistan in 2012, February of 2012.
Wow. So, do you feel like that was your destiny then?
At the time I was very angry because I really wanted to go. I had zero tolerance to stay here in LA, but I think that was God's way to tell me, you know what, you're not meant to go there.
Yes.
I am a big believer of things happening for a reason. And initially, I was angry, I was pissed off because I wanted to go. But as time went by, and I looked back and I thought, God redirected me because I wasn't supposed to be in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Mike and I have these conversations all the time. God's in control, Sanjar. He's in control. We make our plans, but they either fit His will or not. You know.
Oh, absolutely. Mike knows something about why my voice is like this. So when Mike is ready to ask me the question, I'll be
Uh,
that, and that goes back to what you just mentioned, Mac.
yeah, I was just getting ready to go down that path. So, you told me when we were speaking the other week about where were you out in the field with the group from the army when this happened? Just tell the
Well,
story from the beginning.
yeah, I'm also a language instructor with the U.S. military, and from time to time they have these immersion programs where for 2 3 weeks you basically put in a secluded area in a jungle setting. Of course, there are amenities. It's not like you have to rough it out. But I was there in February of this year. It was a 3 week program from February 15th to March 7th, and it was snow. It was cold. So one night before bed, I go to take my last leak for the night, and I started pissing blood. I mean, it was just pure blood coming. So 5 minutes later, I felt my bladder is full. I had to go again, blood. So for about an hour or two, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I was running into the bathroom and I was pissing blood. And I was very concerned. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna wait until the morning, see what happens. If it still continues, I'm gonna ask them to be sent back home. Next morning, nothing. It was normal. Mind you, that I didn't sleep the whole night that night. So throughout the day, I'm just checking and nothing. The next day, nothing. The next day, nothing. So I ended up completing the program. I come back and went to a urologist. Had to get an MRI. The urologist called me in his office. Went to his office and he had to put a camera through my urethra to see what was going on. And I'm looking at the monitor. As he inserts this camera, I see something nasty in my bladder. And I said, "What is that? That's not supposed to be there." He said, "That's cancer." And
Okay.
I said, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yes." I said, "I don't think it's cancer." He said, "Who's the doctor, you or me?" I said, "You, but I don't think it's cancer." Anyhow, he went and he cut a couple of pieces for biopsy. And as soon as he cut the pieces out, the thing started bleeding profusely. So he had to cauterize it. I come out. Then he called me after a couple of days. He said the results came back inconclusive from the tests. And we knew it had to come out. The tumor had to come out. It was a 5 centimeter long tumor. So it wasn't something small.
That's big.
Oh, it's big, yeah. So we scheduled it. It was supposed to be a 60 to 90-minute outpatient procedure exactly 9 months ago today. And I check into the hospital at 6 in the morning. They take me into the room to prepare me where the anesthesiologist comes and gives you basically a rundown. So I'm sitting there with the hospital gown with the open back, and this you guys will find this fascinating, and I swear to you, every bit of it is true. As I'm sitting here, swear to God. So this young black kid, maybe about 6'3", comes in, lanky, and he's wearing a uniform, a security guard uniform, and he says, "Good morning, sir." I said, "Good morning." He says, "My name is Isaiah." And I said, "That's a beautiful name." He says, "My middle name is Matthew." I said, "My goodness, even more beautiful." He says, "I'm here to take down the list of your belongings. We're going to put it in the safe this afternoon before you leave. We're going to return it to you. Thank you." So he takes down the list and he brings the clipboard and to hand it to me to sign it. And I go to grab it and he doesn't let go. And I pull again and he doesn't let go. So I look up at him, and he says, these are exact words. He said, "God just told me to tell you you're going to be okay." And the doctor is looking at him and I said, "I'm sorry, come again." He said, "God just told me to tell you you're going to be okay." And I said, "Thank you, Isaiah Matthew. This is very nice." And he goes, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." I said, "Great." They take me into the OR. I'm knocked out. During the procedure, my bladder is lacerated. The iliac artery in my left leg is cut, is severed. So I bled out to death on the OR table. I lost about 5+ liters of blood. So the code blue goes out. Other doctors jump in. They had to open me up from my belly button to my pubic area, and blood infusion, couple of rounds of chest compression, the defibrillator, and by God's grace, at 4:30 or so, I was brought out of the OR. And while I was in the hospital, the doctors came in. Every day I was in the ICU for 7 days, and in the general ward for another 3 days. But in the first couple of days, I would see doctors and nurses come and stick their head into my room and whisper something and run out. So on the third day, this very distinguished doctor comes in and he mentioned his name. He introduced himself, and I said, "You're the guy that saved my life." And he said, "No, the guy upstairs saved your life. I just happened to be there." And he, yeah, and he tells me, I said, Doc, I see all these nurses and doctors coming by. What gives? I feel like an animal in a cage. And he said, you don't know. I said, what? He said, you have a name here. I said, what's my name? And it was at the St. John Hospital. He said, they call you the miracle of St. John. I said, how so? And he tells me 90% of people that go through what I did die on the OR table. 9% come out with brain damage and they're paralyzed. 1% is you. So you are the miracle.
Wow.
Yeah. So with that said, I'm just grateful. Now Fridays, when Friday rolls around, I get a little bit, I don't know, I get some strange feelings, and I'm asking God. I said, you got to show me why you kept me here. You got to tell me the reason. You got to show me a sign. Send me a clue. Something. Just got to tell me show me something. What is it that I need to do here? So
Sanjar, if I was in your shoes, if I were the one that had that experience, I'm not sure I could tell that story so calmly. But you can use that story to your benefit. When they said 90% of them die, 9% have brain damage, and 1% is you, I would always end the story by saying, I'm not sure if I'm one of the 9% or the 1%, because that gets a good excuse for a lot of different things you can get away with.
yeah, absolutely. And I tell you something. It's uh, it's I uh, it's very. I say it because I think every time I repeat this story, it kind of calms me even more. It's like we spoke about. It's therapeutic. And I tell you another thing that happened while I was in the OR. I actually saw my body on the bed from the corner of the room. I was standing in the corner of the room, actually, maybe about 3 feet off the ground. And I was looking at my body and I was telling myself, that body carried you for all these years. You need to thank it and let it go. And boy, I mean, and all of a sudden, everything goes black. And I don't remember anything after that. So, having come out of this, I spent a lot of time. The first couple of months, it was really tough, emotionally. And I come to the conclusion that, at the time when I went into darkness, uh, I think God covered my eyes with his hands. He showed me what I had to see, and he said, you know what, you've seen enough. I'm going to give you a second chance. And here I am. So
No
for that,
doubt, no doubt, God has a special plan for you. Maybe this
well,
book, maybe the book is that plan. I don't know.
I,
There's no doubt He has a special plan for you, my friend.
yeah, it's funny because when I was in Afghanistan, uh, they would make fun of me, some of the groups that I was working with, because I got blown up so many times and, in ambushes. And they said, boy, you're the cat with 9 lives. You just don't want to die. And
Bad luck.
I said, stop jinxing me. You keep saying it, and at some point, something's going to catch up with me. But,
Yeah.
surviving Afghanistan, surviving the Big Mac truck, landing on top of my car and surviving this, I just kind of look back and I'm at I'm just thankful for being here, for being here.
Well,
And
and blessed.
yeah, it absolutely. I must have done some things right in life to get second, third, fourth chances.
Well, you don't have to answer this last question, and I guess this will pretty much sum it up. But
Sure.
you'd mentioned when you were in Afghanistan, they kept asking you, are Sunni or Shiite. Um, have your spiritual views changed based on any experience in your life?
Uh, Absolutely. And I tell you, I was never a religious person. And just to let you know, I'm neither Sunni nor Shiite. I'm
You're what?
Jewish. I'm neither Sunni nor Shiite. I'm
Okay.
Jewish.
You're Jewish,
A non-practicing Jew. Yeah.
non-practicing Jew.
And that's one thing that I kept a secret, obviously, for obvious reasons. When I was in Afghanistan, it wasn't to be disclosed. But I was never religious, but I always felt a certain connection to God. And this whole journey has taken me to a different place spiritually. It really has. It really has. It has transformed me in a way that I would have never dreamed of.
Sanjar, you just stunned me again. You're a Kurdish, Iranian, Jewish believer. That's an incredible mixture.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you can
I
call
think
me.
you might be the only one.
And I think you can call me a mongrel because I don't feel like I belong to any one sect or group. You know,
Oh, you belong to us now, Sanjar. You're an American. You belong to us. And
it's my
I'm proud to call you a brother.
thank you. It's an honor for me. Thank you, sir. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, Mac, did you have any final questions? And Sanjar, you have an opportunity if you want to say anything here at the end as we sum this up.
When does the book come out and how do I get an autographed copy? That's all I want to know.
The book actually came out. He's out already, and I'd be more than happy if you'd provide me with your address. I'd be more than happy to send you one.
I'll be putting a link to that in the description and all the blog posts, etc.
Yeah, and Mike, you as well, if you like. I'd be more. I know you said you're not a reader, so if the audio comes out, by all means. If not, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy as well.
Well, we'll talk about that after the video's over.
All right, and one thing I wanted to say, first of all, I wanted to thank you both for this opportunity. I want to thank you both for your service. And Mike, I forgot to tell you, last time I was teaching the class, the immersion class, it was a very special group of soldiers that I was teaching, and they always have a name for the Air Force people. They call them the Chair Force. So I don't know if you heard that or not. But my respects to you. You're not a chair force to me. You guys are all and ladies are all top notch. With
In
that,
the Army, Sanjar, we always say to the Air Force guys, we have all different kinds of names, but there's nothing better than an A-10 Warthog comes screaming over the battlefield.
oh,
When the A-10s arrive, you know that the cavalry's there, and your worries are always lessened. So thank
absolutely,
God for the Air Force.
absolutely. I love each and every one of you guys, and again, thank you, Mike, Mac, for giving me this opportunity. It means a lot to me. Thank you for your service, and I just want to say thank you to your audience. I'm sure most of your audience are probably veterans or people who are presently serving. I just want to
Yeah.
thank them from the bottom of my heart.
And we thank you, sir.
Sounds
Absolutely.
good. Okay, the book once again is Land of Tears, and I'll be putting a link to that in the YouTube and also in the blog post. Thank you, Sanjar, and thank you, Mac, and we'll sign out.
Thank you.
Mike, out.
Out.